So you need to take some product photos. Maybe it's for yourself, maybe it's for a client, but either way, I'm going to be walking you through step by step everything that you need to think about in order to get some of those classic professional looking white background product photos ready for presentation on a website or a web store. I'm going to go and get started, so I'll see you in just a sec. Hi guys, I'm Ben from Adaptalux and welcome back to another product photography tutorial. We've already covered product shooting a few times here on the channel, including how to get those detailed shots of your products, coloured backgrounds and black and white backgrounds, but today I really want to expand upon that specific white background shot. I want to give you guys some more tips and ideas and things to think about that will improve not only your shooting experience during the actual taking of the photographs, but also improve the final result, make your images look a little bit more professional, specifically in a website setting. So if your images are intended to go on a website to sell products online, this is the video for you. Now, before you even pick up a camera, the very first thing that you need to do is ask the question, why am I taking these photographs? They might be for yourself, they might be for a client, but either way you need to know the way that these images are intended to be used and where they're intended to be shown. So if we're talking about websites, that means that you need to go and have a look at the website, or you need to discuss with your client how they intend to use the images. Now there's some very specific things that you're looking for, and I'm going to jump over to the computer and cover a few of those and give you a few questions to ask yourself or your client before you even start shooting. So I'm here on the Adaptalux website where we've got lots of examples of how we use product photography. So I've been changing all of these images and redesigning these websites for a couple of weeks now because we've got the brand new Control Pod 3, which means that we need to change all of the images on our website, and it's a really great opportunity to move things around and find new spaces for images to sit. And there are a lot of spaces on websites for different types of images. How you fit those images in is completely down to you or the web designer. So if you're not designing your own website, if you're not fitting your own images into your own spaces, you need to have a discussion with the person that is going to use those images. Perhaps they don't want to use white backgrounds at all. Maybe they're using coloured backgrounds or a grey or a black. It's still possible to deliver some white background images and adapt them into different colours. That's fine, but you do need to know ahead of time that that's what's going to happen. Black background would be a great example of that. If you were taking white background shots and all of a sudden you need to fit one onto a black background, it's almost impossible to adapt a white background image onto a black background and have it look good. There's also some really unique case uses for particular images. For example, this one, which is used as a spacer between two different sections of the page. We have a black image going into a white image. So that's something to think about, whether or not they want some really specific feature images. Now, the one thing that is almost certain when you're talking about product photography is that they will want some product photos for a catalog page. So this is what I would call a catalog page, where you show lots of products in one space. Now, the big key with these is that they need to be consistent between one another. When you're looking at products all together, you need to give the customer the ease of identifying the differences between products. So you can see here that we've got the Ultimate Pack with lots of arms, lots of filters, and right next to it you can see that the Combo Pack straight away has less arms and less filters. It's really easy to tell the difference just by glancing at a big catalogue full of images. The other thing that you'll notice on this page is that these products seem to be floating on the page. There's a great mix of website graphics with images here. So all of this white space around the edges, that's determined by the website. but anything within this little square that you can see outlined by the secondary image, everything inside that square, even on the white image, is determined by the image. So you can see that if you didn't have a white background, a pure white background on your product photography, you would be able to see the difference between that boundary quite easily. You can see that on these grey images here. You can easily see where the image stops and the page starts, but if you're trying to get close but not managing that pure white background, it will look a little bit messy and not very professional. So there's the importance of making sure that you do get a pure white background on your product images. You will be able to tell when you're, especially when you're on a catalog page like this and there's lots and lots of images next to each other, you'll be able to see all those boundaries where you didn't quite get that pure white. Getting shots on a white backdrop is actually deceptively simple. There's just a few things that you need to think about in order to make the most of your time. The first thing is your backdrop, so your surface that you're shooting on. I've conveniently got a nice, easily cleanable, smooth white surface on the top of my desk, and you can use a flat white surface like this if you have one for smaller products. You can see that our control pod here sits nicely in the middle of my desk, and imagining that you guys are the angle of the camera, you can see that there's a lot of white space available around this product at this size. None of the product is overlapping the edge of the table, so we can easily edit or add more white if we needed to. However, if our product were a little bit bigger, say the tripod and the control pod together, you can see that the white of the table is not reaching high enough to cover the back of the product. So this is where you would need a curved white backdrop to fill in those extra height for your product. So depending on how large the products are you're shooting, depends on the size or shape of backdrop that you're going to need. If you're unsure or you want to future-proof your setup, I would recommend getting a larger white backdrop that can be left in place or rolled away quite easily, so that you can expand the area that you're shooting in and always have enough white in the backdrop to suffice. The next thing that you need to do with your surface is give it a clean, and this goes for your product, your camera and your lens as well. There's nothing worse than doing a full day's worth of shooting and finding that there was a speck on your lens, or the products have got fingerprints or scratches on them. You won't notice these things until you get your images much larger on a screen later on. So either you want to be checking as you go, or you want to be trying to avoid it in the first place. Spending an extra 15 minutes to half an hour cleaning everything, making sure that everything is as clean and sanitary as possible, will save you a lot of time in post-processing, trying to remove specks of dust or hairs or scratches or just things that you didn't expect would be on your photos. You can't generally see them with the naked eye, but when you get closer, you will start to notice little bits and imperfections caused by things that were easily removable physically, not so easily removable digitally. The last thing that we need to cover when it comes to our white background is lighting, arguably the most important part. We do have a video that covers this in detail. I'll link that up in the top right hand corner if you want a little bit more in-depth information on how to get that pure white background, but it's actually a really simple principle. All we need to do is light the different parts of our image separately. So we've got a foreground, we've got our product in the mid section, and then we've got a background. That background, it needs to be lit completely separately to the foreground and the product. So to demonstrate that, I've actually got a light up here lighting me and lighting the product, and imagine that you guys are once again the camera perspective. So if I grab an extra light, I can bring that in from the back here, and you can see that this greyish of the table is actually pure white back here. It's completely blown out and overexposed. Now this light can be placed all over the place depending on the shape and size of your background, but the idea is to light the background separately from the foreground and from the product. So this is actually really quite bright back here, but we'd be able to light the front of our product with another, say, LED panel, or if your product's small enough, maybe even the Adaptalux Studio itself. You can light the front of the product, you can light the front of your image, and you can blow out all of those highlights in the background of your image. We don't actually need to get a pure white background, we just need to get close enough that it's easy to edit all of this white around the product without having to cut anything out, which is very time consuming. So let's take a look at how you might want to post-process some of your white background images. There's a few really good tips here for making sure those backgrounds are pure white. You can see that this image it's got a lot of stuff in the sides. The white might look at first glance to be pure white, but I can assure you that it's not. It's very rare to get an actual pure white background in your images in the first instance, but getting as close as possible makes this bit a little bit easier. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that this is a focus stacked photo, because I've got a really long product here and it's also really close. We've got a very shallow depth of field, and I've had to stack this photo to make sure that the entire product is in focus at once. It's a bit of an advanced technique for a tutorial like this, but I will link up in the top right hand corner to another tutorial that shows you how to focus stack if you think your products might need that. So looking at this image, the first thing that I want to do is actually to crop it. I just want to get rid of all of this stuff in the background, so a nice 1:1 crop ratio is going to be fine. I'm just going to try and centralize it as much as possible. You might want to spend a little bit more time making sure that the center of your product lines up with the center of your image, because it might be noticeable if it's not once it finds its way onto a website. So I'm just going to crop this in a little bit closer. I think that'll do for now. So you can see straight away that we've got rid of all of those bits and bobs at the sides. They weren't really a problem, but we do have the end of the table down here. Now the way that I'm going to get rid of this is simply by painting it out. All we need is a white background, and a pure white background at that. So this little button down here is always going to give you a pure black and a pure white on your palette. The next button along is going to swap those two over so that your foreground image is your pure white, and then you can grab your paintbrush tool and simply paint out all of that table down at the front there, so that we've got a nice pure white on the foreground of the image. Now we do have some grey on the background of the image. If I start painting with my white, you'll really be able to see the difference there, just like you would if it were to go onto a website. It's the contrast between those two different colours that's really going to stand out. Now I'm not going to paint out the whole background like this, because if I were to paint over my product, it's going to really affect things and start to not look very good. There is a trick that allows us to see what is pure white and what is not in a really nice visual way. Now we could use the histogram for this, but what I like to do is hit the adjustments layers down here and add a brightness and contrast adjustment layer, and then bring my brightness all the way down. Now this isn't actually affecting my image right now, because it's just a layer over the top, and I can turn that on and off as I please to take a look at what my image looks like in real life versus what the actual colors are. So this is showing me that I've got pure white up here where I've just painted, pure white down here where I got rid of the table, but anything else that isn't that pure white is going to get darker. So that's going to really highlight that this grey is not the ideal pure white that we're looking for. The way to get rid of this grey, I think, is to use the dodge tool. It's down here on the tools panels on the left hand side, and you need to set the range to highlights. Exposure to 100%, you can get away with a little bit less if you don't want to be quite as overbearing as this is going to be, but you also need to untick protect tones as well. Now, making sure that we've got our main layer selected, you can go ahead and start painting out some of this grey in the background. And it's going to behave similarly to the paintbrush tool at first. You can see that I missed a little bit in the corner there that I wouldn't have noticed had I not done the brightness layer. I'm going to start painting this out. The difference that using the dodge tool makes when it comes to painting out white backgrounds is that if I were to overlap my product, because it's not detected as a highlight from the range, it's not going to be affected. This is only picking out highlights. Now, of course, you also need to remember that we are touching really close to white here, so if I go anywhere else near some white, like the light on the lighting arm head here, it will start to affect that, so you do still need to be a little bit careful, but you can go nice and close to all of these edges, and it's just a lot quicker than trying to use a selection tool to meticulously cut around all of the products. It's a very niche use for cutting out white backgrounds that are already taken on a white background, but I think it's a much quicker solution than trying to cut around products which, especially when you've got lots of curves and things like this one does, you might not get the best results from that at all. Once you get to a stage like this, I'd like actually to keep some of the shadows down in the bottom here, so I'm going to change this to midtones. Now, you do need to be careful not to go over your product here, but you can start to paint in a little bit of a gradient going out down into the pure white so that you don't get that stark contrast between the two colours. Now I think that's going to look pretty good, so if I just turn off my brightness layer again, you can see that we've now got our Adaptalux Studio on a pure white background, and we can tell that it's pure white because no matter how many adjustment layers we add, we're not getting any of that white, or rather grey, coming in from the sides. I can see that I've missed a little bit here, and again it's super easy to just grab my dodge tool and just paint that out. The bit that you really need to pay attention to is the few pixels all the way around the edge of the image, because that's where you're going to get that contrast, that meeting line between the image and the website. So once I'm happy with my white, I can save that up, or I can go in and be a little bit more meticulous, and I can already see that there's lots of little bits of fluff and dust accumulated on my product. So I'm going to use my spot healing tool to simply just go around and tidy a few of those up. You can see how this could get quite ridiculous if you've got a lot of dust on your products, and this is after meticulously cleaning these during our shoots. There's still a few little bits have found their way in, but it does all make the difference. How long you spend doing that is entirely up to you. It depends on how large your image is going to be displayed. Nobody's going to go zooming in quite as much as you are, but do make sure to take a look at those things while you're doing your post-processing, because trying to go back and fix things is not ideal once they've already ended up on the website. I think the most important tip that I've given you guys today is actually the one about cleaning. Do make sure to absolutely clean everything as best as you can before you start shooting and during your shoot as well. Dust can settle down on your products, you can get little bits of fluff landing on your backdrop, cameras can gather dust and fingerprints, and all sorts can happen during the shoot as well. So make sure to just keep cleaning everything, because when you get your images up on your computer later on, it really is a pain to spend all of that time cloning out imperfections in your images when it could have just been done in person, physically using a cloth. It's as simple as that. I know it's not very glamorous, but that, I think, is the most important tip when you're trying to get really high quality, professional looking product photos, especially if they're going to be displayed really large on a website. Now, before you go, do make sure to hit the subscribe button. We do have lots more product photography videos on the channel, and there will be more coming in the future. For now, that is all that I've got time for. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.